Oh shit. Okay. Hey guys. Welcome back. Episode 3.
I don't like it. Anyway, no. Hi guys.
You did that on purpose.
Yeah, welcome to episode 3 of Lay It Out.
Our 3rd episode. It's exciting.
I just interrupted Alice because she was being a bitch to me about my intros. So, there we go.
Sorry, Curry. It's been a long week.
It has. Wait, has it?
No,
It's
only
Tuesday.
Classic.
We actually have something that we really wanted to discuss in the intro of this episode.
We did.
If there's any scientists listening to us who are really into science communication, you'd have probably seen this article that Science have published.
That swept through the science. That was really loud, wasn't it?
It's fine.
Okay, I've lost my dramatic moment there now. Sorry. Swept through the science world.
Yeah, especially if you follow Science Sam, then you'll know what we're talking about. This is written by... Do you know what? I'm not going to name her because I don't think she deserves any recognition for this article.
But if you're interested, it's in science, so...
Yeah.
So basically, she's going... The titled Why I Don't Use Instagram for Science Outreach. Had a problem with the title, not gonna lie, but we'll move on from there. So basically, she goes into an account of one scientist in particular who does that very thing, uses Instagram for science outreach, which I think from the outset, like, okay, if you're kind of generalizing, I know it's nice to maybe draw on some examples, but I mean, Science Sam is like the first 2 words in the sentence.
I think...
Seems like a very personal attack.
I think what gets me is that she talks about... She basically mentions the fact that Science Sam, they go to the same uni, and how Science Sam was used as an example to her as to how they should do this science communication, and then she puts in quotes the superstar of science com or something. And it's like, do you want to sound any more jealous and
petty,
bitter?
Yeah. Not a good start.
No, so then she goes on to talking about how all these female scientists on Instagram are using their feminine and pretty faces and all this. She goes on... Oh, no, actually, don't you know what? There was a bit where she was saying she went to a careers workshop where they were told how to use the hashtag SciComm to build their brand. And she goes, the workshop got me thinking, should my post focus less on pastries and more on pipettes? No, bitch! Focus your post on whatever you want to focus your posts on. Like, I don't understand why she feels this need to separate science and her life.
It's like she feels this pressure, and she's then channeling this pressure into this article where she's just being extremely bitter and hateful towards someone who's not doing a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. Also, so then, okay, that initial opening aside, then she goes on to like give her reasons. So, you know, it could have the potential to, I don't know, have some more direction or maybe some more solid like grounds for argument, but her grounds for the argument not to use Instagram for science outreach were that she kind of pitted men and women against each other, as, you know, it's kind of quite a hot topic at the moment. And it said that, oh, you know, like there's not that many men on that do this. It's always women. It's always women who are being demonstrators. It's always women doing this, women doing that. Number 1, you're a scientist. Where are your statistics? Like,
So
I do not think that is a scientific randomized control trial that has been conducted. Number 1. And number 2, like, it's not really the case. Like,
No.
I don't think so. Like,
it annoyed me.
maybe it's different for me because my field, like, nutrition is way more women anyway. Like, there's just not that.
Thing is, that's the thing.
It's
We're both from very women-heavy labs. Well, Alice is from a women-heavy field. Me and Silent Demels are from very women-dominated lab. So our view of, you know, this inequality of men and women in science is maybe a little bit biased, but we fully accept that, yeah, there's a lot more men in science and there's a lot more men in powerful positions getting a lot more salaries. But...
Not only in science, but everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. But this thing of people doing science communication over Instagram has nothing to do with trying to bridge the gap between men and women. Now that's what she tried to bring this to, and that's what annoyed me. Because she was saying, oh, rather than doing this on Instagram, maybe you should go to the government or your board and try to do it through policy and blah blah blah. No one's going on Instagram and opening these pages because they're trying to make a political movement. Political movements come with maybe what they're doing, but they're not trying to sit there and change the world. People open these Instagram pages because they want to educate people, show people who they are, and this is what scientists are like.
Yeah, it's like what's your man who was the first what's the guy who was the first person on the moon? I was about to say Lance, but that's a completely different person.
He's a cyclist?
Yeah, and he's, not him.
Also, I don't think Neil Armstrong was, right? It was actually a Russian astronaut.
Was he not the second? Buzz Aldrin? Yeah, whatever astronaut it was, that he said, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Like, by having, Science Sam on our Instagram, us in our podcast, we're trying to, like, get science to initially our friends and family who we bribe to listen to it, but hopefully then, make waves and like push it further with the ultimate goal of making science more accessible to everybody and getting rid of this idea that science is some different language that if you're not a scientist you can't understand.
I just don't understand why she needed to bring gender equality and pay gaps into this argument in the first place. It's got nothing to do with it. Why can't these women be on social media because they want to be on social media? Maybe they feel good about themselves that day and they want to take a picture of themselves at work.
Yeah.
Why does that have to be then turned into something about, we deserve equal pay? Yes, those movements need to be done and those things need to be said, but someone opening an Instagram page just because they're a woman doesn't mean they've done it for that political message.
Amen.
We haven't started this podcast because we want to...
because there's men who have a similar podcast and we want to be able to show that we do what they do. No, we've done it because there is, in our opinion, no similar podcast.
Yeah. We want to talk to our friends about science. We want to educate people about science, and that's why we've done this podcast. And I don't know, this post just came across extremely bitter, extremely misguided. Not good science. Why are you posting tabloidy type articles? Please stop. And the other thing that kind of annoyed me is I think people need to stop with this idea of social media is bad, social media is poison, we shouldn't be using social media. It's 2018. Social media is everything, and I think people need to embrace that and accept that, and that it's not going to change. And if you can't get on board with social media, you are not getting on board with an entire generation. And it's just ridiculous. You have to accept social media.
It's not going to go away.
No. People saying, social media, people are losing connections, human connections with social media. Being on social media, you're connecting yourself to millions of people around the world. Fine, it's not face-to-face, but you're still connecting. Just because the way we communicate now is online doesn't mean we're not communicating. Yeah, anyway. I love social media, so...
As do I.
I love my Instagram. Oh, that was a story that you wanted to talk about.
Oh, about the batteries?
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to ask any of our listeners. So me and Kiri were out on Friday celebrating one of our good friends who hopefully will be a guest on the show, on the podcast.
Very soon.
Very soon. Because she's just after handing in her PhD thesis. Shout out to Hea. And so we were out celebrating and her boyfriend was there and he started telling this really interesting story. I can't remember how it started.
So we were talking about how Szechuan peppers give you the tingling tongue.
Or no, there wasn't Szechuan peppers, but Szechuan peppers came up.
Yeah, it was a Japanese berry that tastes like citrus but gives you the same effect as Szechuan peppers on your tongue.
Okay, and long story short, our friend's boyfriend, whose name is Reese, who also hopefully will be a guest on the show, was like, oh yeah, the sensation is like when you lick batteries.
And we were like...
And, said this is something that we all would have experienced in our daily lives.
No, but the thing is, this is the thing. He literally said that as if he expected everyone around the table to relate to his story.
Like, didn't even blink.
It was like, he was like, oh yeah, it feels exactly like when you lick a 9-volt battery. And everyone was like...
And then he zoomed in particularly on Curie, because apparently Curie looks like someone who did this in her past. And he was kind of like, Curie, how have you never done this before? So, yeah.
I don't know, Reese. I don't go around sticking batteries in my mouth.
No. So, I think we should put this to our listeners. How many of you out there like to lick batteries? Or have licked them in the past? Silent Amelza, our very own Silent Amelza, is just after owning up to having licked batteries as a child.
Did you get the Szechuan pepper feeling on your tongue? Yes.
Yeah, she got it, yeah, she got that feeling. So, let us know about your experiences with licking batteries.
Yeah,
let's do a survey.
His only argument was that his work colleagues have also done the same, bearing in mind his work colleagues that he was talking about were all men. So I'm starting to think that maybe this is a young boys stick batteries in their mouth plus Silent Amelza.
Plus Silent Amelza, he's shaking her head in the corner.
But please don't lick batteries. Should we introduce our guest?
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
How are you today?
Yeah, good, thank you.
So this is Jo. We've been friends since we've known each other since we were...
Okay. Okay, wow.
We've known each other since we were... Well, I was 12, you were 11. Because you'd have started school at 11, right?
Are you a year older than me?
No, my birthday's in September. So I was 12 when we started school.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
The fun fact, the first day of year 7 was actually my birthday.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
So we went around the form and introduced ourselves to everyone, and our form tutor wanted us to say a fact.
Yeah.
And my fact was, "Hi, I'm Kiri, it's my birthday."
Oh.
Yeah.
That's such a shit fact.
Yeah,
Shut
that's really shit. Also awkward because they don't have to go like, happy birthday. No one gives a fuck or knows who you are.
So true.
Guys!
Yeah, so true.
You're making my first day of school so much heartbreaking than it was.
Retrospectively.
Yeah. So then I think when me and Jo really started to become quite good friends was in sixth form. So we spent a lot of free periods together at that point.
Yeah.
Because also with our school, everyone got along really well. Like we weren't very cliquey, but the forms were also very much their own forms.
Yeah.
So Jo was in Nightingale.
Yeah.
I was Wren. So we had 5 forms and they were all named after birds.
Nice.
So it was Nightingale, Wren, Falcon, Griffin, and Swift.
12 and 11.
Moving along.
Yeah.
Oh, then we became friends in sixth form.
We became friends in sixth form. And we've stayed. Jo's one of the few friends I've actually stayed in touch with after
same,
school.
Oh, that's nice.
So yeah.
So hang on, Irish school is different. So was this secondary?
Yeah, secondary school. Yeah,
Oh
so,
yeah, 12, 11.
And sixth form starts when you're 16/17. And so then that's when we start to
Because
get
it's been almost
close.
10 years.
Yeah, I know, crazy, right?
Has it not been
Oh, wait,
10
over
years? Yeah, more than 10
Was it 11
years.
plus 10? Fucking hell. Yeah, so it's over 10
We've known each other for 13 years.
Yeah.
We've been friends for nearly 7 years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy.
Oh, you guys.
Yeah, I know.
Aw. Many more to come.
I have some of the most embarrassing moments of my life with Jo, and not because I was the one that was embarrassed.
Oh, yeah.
Shall we just skip the papers and go into the embarrassing
No,
moments?
let me just tell the one story.
Yeah, I know which one it's
Jo,
going to
Jo knows. So this was for my 18th birthday. We went out in Brick Lane. I went to a bar first, and then we went to a club. Jo did not make it to either.
Nice. They went to a bar and to a club.
No.
I've just not made it on the fucking tube.
Yeah. So we met in Victoria Station, and she's already absolutely wasted, like off her face.
Yeah.
I think her and her friend had gone for a whole bottle of limoncello.
Yeah.
Also,
No, not me and my friend. Me.
Yeah. Also, shout out to limoncello. Who drinks limoncello anymore?
No, the worst thing because it's like a special gift from her parents that had been to Italy,
Oh, no.
and I saw it and I was like, yeah, it tastes really, really nice. Down the whole thing. That's it.
Yeah, so she's there. She's already wasted, but I'm like, typical Jo, ha ha ha. We get on the tube. Oh no, do you know what? It can't have been my 18th birthday because no one else was 18. It would have been my 19th birthday because I was the oldest in the year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it would have been my 19th birthday anyway. So we get on the tube, and this girl. Okay, most of our listeners are English, so you'll know the London tube has no ventilation.
Oh, yeah.
It is small and old. This girl starts vomiting
Oh!
all over the inside of the tube.
It's like a fucking Febreze. It's pure lemon. Just like, it's
like up against the door.
Yeah.
Everyone is looking at us like, what the fuck are these yobs doing on our train? Whenever we stopped at a station and the doors opened, she would pop her head out that door and throw up all over the platform and
then
pop
just
her head
pull off to the next station.
and pop her head back in. And I have never been so embarrassed in my
And then I sat on the
life.
street outside the bar for a while, and then someone else had to take me home.
Yeah.
Well, that was
I
a
just
good
got
night.
every bin on the way back as well.
For you.
And then my mum, like weirdly, had bought lemon, like citrus flavoured shower gel. So I was actually in the shower the next day, like, and literally trying to cleanse myself. Also, all I could smell was limoncello. Because like, I can't even smell the stuff now because I literally want to gag. Yeah. So yeah, so really good friends.
The thing with Jo as well is she's a really sloppy vomiter.
I
No.
didn't know.
Are you one of these people who never makes it to the toilet?
Yeah, you sick on yourself a lot.
Oh.
So for me, myself personally, when I'm drunk and I need to be sick, I'm really efficient.
Me too.
Like half the time, people don't even realise I've gone to be sick because I've just gone done the deed and then left.
Yeah.
Um,
Tactical bomb.
Yeah. Whereas Josephine likes to make a show. Everyone needs to know how drunk she is.
If she's gonna leave with a bang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take you all that with me.
Yeah. So Josephine, what do you do?
I work in recruitment.
Not for long.
Not for long. Ominous. I've got 11 days left, and then I'm going travelling. So yeah, recruitment for now.
How's that?
It's fun actually. All you do is literally just talking to people all the time.
And you're good at that.
I do quite enjoy
Yeah.
that. But then I'm meant to be listening about their lives, and I'm like, oh my god, me too. I need to get them a job. So that's what I need to focus on. But yeah, it's really fun. It's fun.
Nice.
Cool. So what is your history with science? Like, were you good at it at school? Did you do it at school?
I did AS level physics and I got a C. Before that, I did it in GCSE. One of our teachers, I realised his name was Shane, by the way, Mr. Goldsmart, was like, took me to one side one day, like a parents' evening, in front of my mum and dad, like, science just isn't for you, is it, dear? And I was like, oh, that sounds like right, actually.
To be honest, nothing was for Mr. Goldsmart.
Yeah, that's true. And my dad was furious. I think he made me do physics AS level just to show him that I didn't do very well in it. So I was like, fuck you. But that's kind of where my science career came to an end.
Do you dabble in it at all anymore?
I feel like maybe I do. I follow the Guardian on Facebook.
Guardian's not a bad source.
Yeah, they're quite good.
If they post interesting, I read interesting articles, but I don't know if it's specifically science or other. Read the odd thing.
Yeah, no, they're good, and they always get in touch with researchers. I think from universities and get quotes and.
Cool. So should we get into it then?
Yes.
I'm going to give you a quick summary, and then after that we'll dive deep. So this paper is actually a really, really big paper, but I'm really going to talk about half of it because that's the really interesting part. And this paper is actually something that's really quite special to our lab, and it's what big chunk of my PhD, the technique that I'll be using, is based from the theory of this paper. Basic summary of this paper, really quickly, is it saying that the things in our blood and our circulation can affect the brain and increase the production of new brain cells. So a little bit of background on this paper. The main theme behind this paper is a field called adult hippocampal neurogenesis.
Right.
So adult meaning, not a child, obviously. Hippocampal is describing a region of your brain called the hippocampus. So this is a region of your brain that's mainly associated with memory, and in particular spatial memory. So, where you've been and directions and all that kind of thing. But the two main sort of things that I look at in my work anyway is recognition memory, which is the ability to remember things that you've encountered before. So, for example,
a face.
Facial recognition is actually slightly different.
Okay.
Facial recognition in itself is a whole other thing. So recognition memory could be something like, I saw a painting one day and I remember it clearly when I see it again that this is something I have seen before.
Okay.
And then the other sort of memory that I look into a lot is called pattern separation. And this is the ability to tell the difference between two very similar events or things. So people think that this has a lot to do with things like remembering where we left our keys. Because every day you leave your keys generally in the same place, but every time it will be somewhere slightly different. Like it will be slightly to the left, to the right, whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And it's this pattern separation that helps us remember this. It's a similar event, but slightly different.
Okay. And they're both in the whatever.
The hippocampus.
Hippodrome, I was going to say.
The hippo.
The hippo, yeah.
The hippocampus, yeah.
Hippocampus.
And then neurogenesis is a production of new neurons in your brain.
So making new brain cells in this little area of your brain, which helps you recognise things you've seen before, or that are slightly different from other things you've also seen.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yes.
Spot on.
In adults.
In adults,
Yes.
yeah. So this was actually thought to not happen until about 50 years ago. The first sort of evidence was seen then, and then over the past 20, 30 years it's really taken off and becomes this actually really popular, interesting field of science.
Are you going to mention
so we won't go into
the
it.
unmentionable?
We won't go into it in detail. Anyone that has been on social media or is a scientist will probably have seen this big paper that made waves
Big waves
of drama through our field.
Tidal wave.
It was basically a paper saying that it doesn't happen in humans. I'm not gonna...
That hippocampal neurogenesis.
I'm not gonna go into it in detail. I'm just gonna say that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence.
Ooh.
Drop mic.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
I can't believe you did that to me.
Mic drop. Yeah, so I mean, I think the main thing from that is, you need to view everything with a balanced opinion. Just because this one paper's out doesn't discount 20 years of work that's already existing. That's all I'm going to say. So this paper looks at this adult hippocampal neurogenesis, and the main thing is that as we age, this rate of neurogenesis declines, and with that, our cognitive function declines. So your cognitive functions are brain-based skills. So this is memory, language, attention, yada, yada, yada. Then one of the things that they were thinking, so basically, this reduction, so these impairments or reduction or your memory getting worse as you age, which could be down to hippocampal neurogenesis, is improved by systemic changes. So systemic is the opposite of localized. So it's your changes in your whole body, and it usually refers to your circulatory system. So the blood running around your body, changes in that environment is a systemic change. So from this they were like, oh, well, maybe from that we can see if it is these blood-borne factors that are doing something, because these activities such as diet and exercise, which are a whole body thing, are having this effect on the brain. Is it actually something that's in the blood that's doing it? That's what they wanted to see.
Okay. So going back to the neurogenesis thing, I skimmed over that, like, oh yeah, I get that. Actually, no, I don't. I get it. So, if your neurogenesis is like slowing down in old age, do you, to keep going in life, do you have to keep constantly making new?
Well, I think the big point is that it wasn't thought to happen outside of childhood. Ever. So it was thought that all your neurogenesis happened in childhood. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So you made all your brain cells, and then from, say, early teen or something, that was it. You finished making all your brain cells, and you just continued on the rest of your life with those cells. And
so this is the idea that you, as an adult, you can make more new cells.
So what they found is that there's this pool of stem cells in your hippocampus that are sitting there doing nothing. And then we've realised, actually, no, these stem cells are turning into neurons. And so what we're trying to, and we think that's why, as you age on, memory naturally declines and all this. We think it's because this neurogenesis is slowing down, that why we can't start forming new memories and why it's declining. So you asked about function. That's the big question now. What is the function of neurogenesis? Why is it happening? What is it doing? And how can we control it? And maybe if we improve it, we can slow things down. Maybe we can slow down the onset of Alzheimer's disease, for example. That's what the thing is right now.
Is this related to anyway, in that, like, when people do meditation and stuff, they form new brain waves or something?
No. I mean, but you know what? There's a thing right now of mindfulness. Is kind of a big wave right now, and it's possibly maybe mindfulness might have something to do with it as well. Probably counteracting stress. And so stress has been shown to reduce your neurogenesis. So if you're mindful, meditating, it can relax you, improves your stress levels. Maybe that's what's having an impact on your neurogenesis. So we're going to go into the nitty-gritty of the paper now. I must say this paper is an animal paper. So any animal activists who are going to give me shit for that, leave now. I don't have time for that.
You have been warned.
You don't need to listen to the rest of the podcast. You can come back in about 25 minutes when we'll start talking about Alice's paper. So the main technique of this paper is called heterochronic parabiosis.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
Okay, I know hetero is straight.
Okay.
Chronic is bad.
Chronic
disease is a bad disease.
No, chronic is long lasting. So chronic disease is a long term disease.
So straight something, long something.
Straight, long.
Parabiosis.
No.
I
didn't get this either. When I read the title, I was like, what does that mean?
So heterochronic parabiosis is the act of joining two animals of different age via their circulatory system. So basically they do the surgery, they like stitch all their little veins together, and then they're sharing their circulatory.
Okay, that's weird. They make them Siamese twins.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's like a real life human centipede.
Yes, I was just thinking that. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's their veins or their lungs. Or both.
No, their veins.
Just their veins.
Yeah.
Oh.
So just their blood.
Ooh. So what if one of them needs to move? Their veins come out.
To be honest, I don't think these mice are moving very much.
That's very intricate sewing though, actually.
Yeah.
Do surgeons do the sewing?
It will be some sort of animal surgeon, otherwise known as a vet.
A veterinary surgeon.
Yeah, that will have performed it. And also a lot of researchers get trained in these surgical techniques, but something like this would require extreme skill.
Professional.
So it would have been someone who knows what they're doing.
Is it all their veins?
I mean, they're only joined on one side.
Okay.
They're joined on the side. They're not like...
I was thinking like wrist on wrist. Chest on chest. I don't know. Neck
No,
on neck.
they're
Okay,
side to side.
Okay.
Yeah. So their hypothesis, so their theory behind this would be that these changes in their circulatory system that are related to their age, so these are older mice, could cause a decline in their neurogenesis, so the production of new brain cells.
So memory and stuff.
And impair their memory.
Okay.
So the way that animal research works,
so if they sew them together, they'll remember it for fucking ever. But like, your memory's forever improved, but they're sewn together for life. That's so shit. That's the worst. You don't forget that immediately.
But you never could.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the way animal experiments are a little bit different from human experiments, because human experiments are so big and so long, it's a bit different. So
And you can't, there's a lot of things that you can't really do to humans.
Yeah. So with animal research, I'm going to tell you about 4 experiments. This whole paper was actually about 8 or 10 experiments, but these are the really cool bits I want to tell you about. And also, we'd be here forever if I talked to you about this paper, because it's huge.
Yeah.
So in the first experiment, they just wanted to make sure that this decrease in neurogenesis is actually happening, because that's what we think is happening. Let's just double check that it's happening. So they would check all the characteristics of the mouse, of an aging mouse, on their cells, their behaviour, and the electricity behaviour of their neurons. So they're testing all of that, and they saw, yes, neurogenesis is going down. They have decreased cognition, so their memory is going down. Great. This is confirmed what we know. We can carry on.
Okay, yeah.
They're just checking that what we think is happening is happening.
Okay.
So then experiment 2. This is when they did the parabiosis. They did an isochronic parabiosis, which is mice of the same age.
Okay.
So they would have a young and an old.
Okay.
And so these would be something that they can compare their experiment to.
Okay, yeah.
And so then they have the heterochronic, which is a young and an old mouse that's been fused together. Joe looks very uncomfortable right now.
I think you're all so weird. Also got in my head, maybe old blood is like a bit darker.
It looks like sludgy and thick, right?
Like going to be
Like it's kind of going on past itself by days.
So they would do this. The mouse would like this, and then they would kill them and have a look at.
Fair.
Yeah.
Luckily, kinda.
Now that they can't ever forget it, they're like, thank God, sweet release. So they would check. They checked these sort of markers in their brain slices, which can tell you about what's happening in those cells.
Where is the hippocampus?
So it's sort of in the middle, towards the back of your brain.
And if you slice up your brain, you can see all the different bits, all the different zones.
Yes.
Under a microscope.
Yeah. For a mouse, anyway. Because mouse brains are about the size of a Smartie.
Well,
yeah, they're really small.
Yeah.
Cute.
So then, when they looked at the mouse that was young and old mixed together, they saw in the old mouse, their rate of cells that were dividing had gone up, and their rate of young neurons had gone up.
So the new, fresh mouse blood had been revitalising the old mouse brain.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. And then when they looked at the young mouse, all of those things had gone down. So they had less stem cells.
He sucked life out of the young mouse.
Yeah.
It's like Voldemort, isn't it? Oh, that's so weird. Because he got the sludgy old blood.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And it slowed everything down.
Yeah. The sludgy old blood sucked the shit out of their brain. Yeah. So they had less dividing cells, less stem cells, and less new neurons.
Okay.
And then when they looked at the young and the old, there was no difference. So that's great. So we know it's definitely something to do with the fact that there are different ages of blood mixing together that's causing something to happen.
Yeah.
So these global age-dependent changes in your circulatory system can modify neurogenesis. And actually one of the theories behind why they think this could happen is because that region of your brain, like that small area of your brain where this neurogenesis is happening, it has lots of blood vessels around it.
Yeah. So that only happens in one area of your brain? In humans, as far as we're aware at the moment, the hippocampus is it. In rodents, it's also been found in the olfactory bulb, which is sort of to do with your nose and sense of smell and stuff.
That's interesting because don't animals use their sense of smell a lot more than humans do?
Yeah.
So that obviously makes more sense that, they get new smells and then they make new neurons and then they'll remember.
Yeah. Whereas in humans, it hasn't been found in the olfactory bulb. At the moment, it's confirmed in the hippocampus.
So that's the only bit at the moment where humans can make
new neurons,
improve their brain.
Yeah. There are other regions of under debate, but it's all very controversial. In fact,
Yeah.
even the hippocampus is still controversial. Considering the paper that has come out, you will find a lot of people that won't believe that it's happening.
Yeah.
So then, experiment 3, they were like, okay, well, we need to confirm that it is definitely from the blood that this is happening.
Yeah, okay.
So what they would do is they don't attach the mice anymore. At this point, they take blood from one and inject it into the other.
Surely they could have done that at the start, actually. No?
I think they're
Yeah.
investigating
Yeah.
different ways.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I mean, you're right. To be honest,
cruel.
now that you say it kind
Yeah.
of does sound like they had this cool idea and were like,
Fuck.
fuck it, let's do it and see what
Yeah.
happens. So they take the blood from the old mouse and they
Yeah.
injected it into the young mouse, and they saw the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So yes, factors in the old blood is inhibiting neurogenesis in the young mouse and in themselves.
Okay, cool.
Okay, great. And then we go on to experiment 5. So this is the last experiment I'm going to tell you about.
Yeah.
This is when they tested the behavior of the mice. So is this affecting their learning and memory? So they would do 2 tests. One was called contextual fear conditioning, and one is called the radial arm water maze. I will describe all of these in detail because Joe looks very confused right now.
Yeah.
So 1, contextual fear conditioning. So this is where the mouse will learn to associate their environment with something bad. So the
Yeah.
something bad here is a mild foot shock. So they'll get a slight electric shock to the foot. This is not painful, it's easily tolerated, it's just a little bit uncomfortable for the mouse.
Okay.
So they will condition the mice. So they will have a tone, like a beep, or sometimes a light, but in this paper it was a beep that will go off, and then the foot shock will happen. So the mouse knows, if I hear this beep, I'm going to get a foot shock.
Right, okay, yeah.
The way they measure it is that a mouse freezes when they're scared. So that's what happened. When the tone goes off, they'll freeze.
Even if they don't get the foot shot.
Yeah. So the way they do this is on day 1, they have 2 minutes to explore and just roam around, have a bit of fun. And then they'll get the conditioned stimulus. So this means the tone and the shock.
Yeah.
And then they'll do it again, but it'll be unconditioned. So this means they'll just associate the environment with the shock.
So no beep, but still same cage
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then this is repeated. The next day, they are placed back in the fear conditioning chamber.
Oh my god.
And this time, there's no conditioned stimuli or foot shock, but their behaviour is analysed. This means that they should recognise their environment.
They should be scared.
Yeah, and they'll be scared. And then 1 hour later, they are put in a new environment. So this means the cage could smell different, the texture of the floor could be different, it might be a different shape, they might have different toys in there, whatever.
Yeah.
It's different. They're given 2 minutes to explore, and then they're exposed to the conditioned stimuli. So at this point, the tone goes off, and they're seeing if they freeze to that.
And like differentiate it from the
Exactly.
surrounding. So interesting.
Yeah. When they had the mice with the old blood, they did find that there was a decrease in freezing in the unconditioned stimuli. So in the
new environment. Oh.
No, the old environment, there was less freezing, but not in the queue. So they remembered the tone, but they couldn't remember their environment.
Okay.
The time they spent frozen was a third less than before
Young
they got
blood.
the old blood. Yeah, exactly. So this is, they don't remember. They don't remember their surroundings. They can't recognise anything that's around them. They're impaired in their recognition of what's around them. The second test is called the radial arm water maze. And what this is...
That's like total wipeout.
Do you know what? When,
This is like total wipe.
It is.
Total wipe for me.
when I
Yeah.
describe it, it's even more like that because it's in a pool,
Okay.
and usually they'll use like a kids paddling pool,
Nice.
and it's got 6 swim alleys.
Okay.
So, yeah. So it's like the radial arms. So there's radial arms. There's 6 of them going
Radial
on.
means straight.
Radial is like circular. So like they're in a circle.
Oh.
Like a wheel, like spokes of-
Yeah.
Okay, cool, yeah.
So on the first day, they'll have 2 trials. Trial 1, there's a visible platform. They have 1 minute to find this goal arm. So what this means, so basically when mice go in water, they don't like it,
Yeah.
and they try to get out of the water as fast as possible.
Okay.
So then there's, on one of the arms, there's going to be a visible platform. So this could be maybe like a block of Lego that's stuck on top of it, that sticks out the water, and they'll go see it, and they'll go and stand on top of it.
Okay.
So they do this, and then they stay on the platform for 15 seconds. In the second trial, they hide the platform. So they won't get rid of it, but they want to see if the mouse can find the platform anyway.
Will it be in the same area?
Yes, it's
So
for
their
the same.
idea is like to go to the same area.
Yeah, exactly. Because on this first day, because they're still training the mice, if the mice don't find it fast enough, they'll sort of guide the mice to the platform with their
Yeah.
hands and just make sure the mouse can find it. This is done a few times. This is repeated because they're training
Okay.
the mouse. On the next day, they will repeat this, but they will will only use the hidden platform, and they will record how many times the mouse makes a mistake finding the platform.
Okay.
In the training phase, they found that all the mice had similar swim times and a similar learning
And
capacity.
they're all in their own little arms.
Yeah, so for each mouse, the platform will be on a different arm.
Okay, they've all got their own platform.
Yeah, so but the mouse will be tested one at a time. They'll just move where the platform is.
Right, so I'm imagining this is
Uh-huh.
water,
Yeah.
and there's like loads of different spokes, and each mouse is like trying to get on this one platform in the middle for some reason.
But they test them one at a time.
So there's only one mouse in the whole
But
entire
they're always
pool.
in their own spoke.
No. With one mouse, they'll start them on the same spoke,
Yeah.
and their platform will be on the same spoke, on a different spoke. But the starting position and the platform will never change for this one mouse.
Okay.
They'll remove that
It's like
mouse.
7:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll remove that mouse, then they'll bring in a new mouse, and then for this mouse, they're going to put them in a different starting position with a platform in a different place to the other mouse.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then that will stay the same for that mouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought all the mice could see each other and be like, fuck! Like,
This isn't like
Like the
a.
Hunger Games.
Jerry's
Yeah.
made it to his fucking platform. Like, okay, right, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It's not like that.
They can't learn from each other.
No.
Okay.
They're not going to be together.
Okay.
Yeah.
What one are they together, sorry, in the shock room?
No, they're
Dungeon.
always tested individually. When they tested them, they found actually, when these people, imagine doing this to people.
These people. That really would be the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
The mouse that had been given the old blood, they made 3 times as many errors as the young people. As the young mice. So they have impaired long-term memory, and they can't find this platform.
Right.
They also sort of did this all again, but instead of injecting the blood, they just got rid of the neurogenesis in the mouse. They would usually use some sort of like genetic modification to just get rid of the neurogenesis, or
What's
they can
neurogenesis?
treat it with a drug or something.
What's neurogenesis again?
The production of new neurons in your brain.
Right, yeah.
So they will treat the mouse in some sort of way that will stop this from happening, and they saw the same problem. So that basically what that shows is that these factors in the aging blood is definitely inhibiting this production of new neurons, and furthermore, it is functionally contributing to impaired cognitive function.
So the blood is defo doing it.
Yeah, the blood's defo doing it, and it's fucking up their memory and their brain cells.
And then the drug.
No, okay.
the drug is to.
No, when they got rid of the neurogenesis in the mouse, that was just to double check that they're seeing the same thing as the blood.
So the blood is having the same effect
Yeah.
as getting rid of the.
as getting rid of it.
Okay.
So this blood
Yeah.
is doing that. So what this factor that's in your like old blood is
Sludge blood.
in your sludge blood is fucking up your neurogenesis, and moreover it is also adding to the fact that your memory's gone to shit.
Oh, okay, that's cool. That's interesting.
And that's it. That's the paper.
What is it in the blood? The oxygen or something?
It'll be everything that you do will be affecting it differently. So,
Okay.
and actually, there's a lot of work trying to find out what it is in the blood that's doing it.
Yeah.
And right now, we can't tell you. The only thing we know is it's definitely not just one thing. It's going to be several things in the blood that's doing something.
Okay.
And right now, no one knows what that is, but there's something. And everything that you do, so the things that are considered good for your neurogenesis right now are exercise, diet, things like fasting, polyphenols, so eating lots of berries, for example. Red wine, actually.
Raspberries are my favourite fruit.
Well, eat lots of those.
Loads of polyphenols.
Yeah.
Red wine,
Ooh.
dark chocolate,
Red wine, yeah.
extra virgin olive oil.
Yes.
Coffee, although coffee is very controversial, apparently you need to drink about 20 espressos a day to get the same effect that was seen in animal studies right now. So
Which
maybe,
I think would not be good for your heart.
maybe don't do that.
It might count. Like your memory will never alter
Yeah.
because you'll die. Like
As the heart
Exactly. Low stress, lots of good sleep. Basically, all in all, an overall healthy lifestyle right now.
I never knew that affected your blood. I don't know why.
It's all different factors in your blood, especially diet is a big thing in your blood. And it's more to do with how your body is reacting to these things that you're doing, and that will go into your circulatory system. It's a balance of good and bad things. Do you know what? There's a theory out there. The theory of homeostasis is it that keeps your body at balance, and if something goes bad, it brings it back to normal. There's this other thing called hormesis, and this is quite controversial. And hormesis and homeostasis are actually in battle with each other. Because what people that do hormesis is saying is that actually we need to stress our body to allow it to know how to bounce back and be good.
That's kind of like weights.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, you're like tearing your muscles.
Yeah.
And like now, like if I drink limoncello now, my body knows what to do.
Exactly.
It it, learn its lesson.
Yeah.
That young blood.
Exactly,
Full of
yeah.
limoncello. Course
Full of limoncello.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you know, the exercise analogy is actually when I saw a talk about this guy that does hormesis, that was one thing he said. He said, we know that exercise is actually a stress for your body.
Yeah.
It's actually the things that exercise does to your body initially is actually not very good. It's putting a lot of stress on your body, but we need that stress to then for our body to do something
Build up.
good and go past. Yeah.
Hence why you're in pain, but you describe it as like a good pain.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that post-gym pain.
It's quite a good pain,
Yeah.
yeah. Although, do you remember like 2 weeks ago where I just wasn't dealing with it well at
You
all?
couldn't move your
I
shoulders.
was about to cry. I was in so much pain. It was
Really?
awful.
The worst one is when you have really bad ab pain and you realise you just can't do anything. Like,
You can't even laugh.
yeah, you can't laugh. You can't sit up after lying down. It's the worst thing. Or you know when you've had a really heavy leg day and you're trying to go to the toilet and you can't like get down to the toilet because your legs hurt so much.
Oh, it's tough.
Yeah.
Okay, this reminds me of something that might be completely unrelated.
Mhm.
Feel free to remove.
Mhm.
But GCSE history,
Uh-huh.
we learned about some guy, but like where if your body is like a balance,
Mhm.
and like if you were fainting, he'd be like, "Oh, you've not got enough phlegm," and he'd like give you phlegm, or like he'd use leeches like take blood out, and like
Mhm.
it's all about like balance of your various
You know
bodily
that
things.
Bloodletting from with leeches.
Yeah.
That still happens.
Does it?
Yeah, it's actually very effective.
Is it?
Yeah.
For what?
Mm.
I don't know. I saw it on Grey's Anatomy, so it must be true.
Oh, yeah. A man also gave birth to a baby on Grey's Anatomy. So
Oh, that's in real life as well.
Really?
Years ago, I remember like the first ever man. It was like a transgender.
I remember that, I
Yeah,
remember
first
that.
ever man.
But
But if they're transgender, then
Yeah.
they're actually
A woman.
originally.
Let's not.
We've gone into some gender issues already, so
Yeah.
we won't do more in this.
Because I
podcast.
guarantee anything, someone's going to take my words, what I said, and twist it into, oh, these girls don't care about gender equality and blah, blah, blah.
We do care
Fuck off.
so much.
Ding ding, silent develop the fact. Leeches may be used to help improve blood flow in an area of tissue or skin flap. Ew. Why did you say skin flap? That has poor circulation.
Okay, completely different.
Specifically farmed in Wales.
It's cool. Leeches are.
The leeches.
What is so special about Welsh leeches?
Specially farmed in Wales.
Oh. This is already taking a turn. I'm confused.
Ding ding.
Ding, ding.
Thank you, Silent Demelza. Alice, let's move on.
That's really interesting. Thank you, Kiri.
You're welcome. Oh, actually, Joe, do you know what? This reminds me, you might have seen it in the news recently that there's all these vampire studies going on.
Oh yeah. Oh god.
And there are clinical trials going on right now where they're injecting blood from young people into Alzheimer's patients to see if anything's happening.
And I sent you this.
Mhm.
There's also a study which it was in the media quite a bit,
Mhm.
but they're making people pay for it because this is obviously
Yep.
extremely expensive.
Oh.
So they're marketing it to filthy rich people in America,
like
Mhm.
fancy
saying like
movies.
all these people who like to have like
Oh yeah.
really-
Kim K had some kind of blood.
That's the vampire facial,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, hers
Um,
was just a facial. This is
Yeah.
like really rich old Americans, and they're like, if you pay $32,000, we'll give you all this young blood and you won't get Alzheimer's.
do you know what? I know that it's a company called Ambrosia.
Yeah.
They have. Hang on, I'm just going onto the website to find how much it costs.
It's like something out of a sci-fi film.
1 litre of treatment for $8,000 or a 2 litre treatment for $12,000. So
How
unless
many
you're.
litres of blood are in you?
5 in a regular man.
Yeah.
So to be 1/5 young. That's $8,000.
So basically, unless you're filthy fucking rich, don't even think about it. And also, this
And also,
this isn't even
Or
confirmed.
just literally suck the blood out of your neighbour or something for free.
I mean, you know.
You might go to prison, but
Yeah, I mean, you know what? It's not worth it. None of this is proven right now. Just because we've seen it in a mouse doesn't mean it's going to happen in humans. It's very promising that the clinical trial is happening, but the clinical trial has shown good things, but there's also a lot of people sort of going against it. They've done it with a very small number of people as well. There needs to be a lot of work done. But at the moment, it's potentially quite promising.
would you ever volunteer to be sewn up to Alice?
No.
No.
good God no.
Can you hear how loud she is? She would blow out my eardrum before the day even
And
started.
this isn't even me at full power. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, there is no one I would be sewed to willingly.
So, round 2. Now it is time for my paper. I'll read out the title and then I'm going to give you a bit of context into why I chose this particular paper. So the title of the paper is Characterization of Hangover Following Intravenous Alcohol Exposure in Social Drinkers.
Cool.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'll just say I picked this paper for a few reasons. Number one, it is today the 20th of March. The 17th of March is a particularly special day for people from my home country. It is St. Patrick's Day, and we are under legal obligation to all get quite merry. So
I thought Irish are under legal obligation to get married every day.
that's just racist.
Like how you guys like potatoes and
Just
butter.
St. Patrick's Day. Oh, other fun fact. St. Patrick's Day is the most globally celebrated holiday
Yeah,
festival
holiday.
in the world.
That just shows that
More than Christmas.
Yeah.
the
because
world
if you
likes
think
to
about
get
it-
fucked up.
Yeah, that was cool.
And like pour green dye in their rivers. Shout out to Chicago. What else do they do? Yeah, it's just celebrated everywhere.
Speaking of
I can't
Chicago, can I just give a shout out to our listener from Tennessee, which I know has nothing to do with Chicago. But
And seeing as we're giving shout outs, we also had a listener in Iceland, so shout out to you too if you're still listening. I hope you are.
yeah, very
So-
cool.
So, hangovers.
Yeah.
And also, I'll just mention that, it's Tuesday, but still feeling the slight effects of a hangover, as you may tell from my voice, which sadly has been lost to St. Patrick's Day, but actually has gotten a lot better, because up until today, I sounded like I smoked 50 a day since birth. So, it's on the mend. It's getting there. We're just a bit squeaky every now and again. So, apologies for that. So, okay, I'll read out the title one more time, and then you can hit me with your best question. Characterization of hangover following intravenous alcohol exposure in social drinkers
Intravenous.
via the blood. So they put a catheter into their vein, and that's how they gave them the alcohol.
IV.
They didn't drink it. Yeah, IV.
Ah.
Yeah. Any
Why? In a social setting.
No,
Get your
so-
IV out, you drink that.
Doesn't sound very fun, does it?
Yeah.
No, okay, so it's just in social drinkers. It doesn't say it's
Oh.
not necessarily social settings. So they're just basically saying that they're people who drink quite frequently. They're like, they like to have a good time. So I'll just go into a little bit about the background and the goals and what they were trying to achieve in this study.
I have a very quick question.
Go for it.
Is there a definition of a social drinker?
Yeah, so this probably is one of the limitations because they do not go into what they characterize as a social drinker. What they have measured at baseline and as an inclusion criteria is via a questionnaire which evaluates your drinking, number of drinking days, number of drinks on those drinking days, number of heavy drinking days. So it measures all these things in the past 90 days and then they characterize those people. I'm sure they had some sort of cutoff that they used. As far as I could tell in this paper, they didn't define it, but they did further subdivide these into two groups based on one of the things they were interested in, which I'll explain now. So this paper is part of a larger study. So sometimes when they run clinical trials, they'll be like, so you gather so much data that it can't all be published in just one single article. So they'll split it up into kind of smaller articles. But the one with the biggest impact is going to be the one on the primary outcome. So that's the main question that they had. Everything is going to have been designed around this main question. So all the other side papers are interesting, but they kind of can't be seen as strong evidence because the study wasn't designed for their purpose. They're just kind of
like adding up
nearly like some or they're like exploratory, like they're kind of like, oh, we'll see what happens, but it wouldn't have been perfectly designed for that outcome. So this paper is some of those smaller outcomes. So there's kind of a few little problems with it that I would say, but it got published, so it's still interesting. We'll go into it and we'll see what happens. So the overall study was looking at the influence of familial history of alcoholism on acute responses to IV alcohol. So that's immediate responses. It doesn't go into it in this paper, so I'm not sure exactly what those responses are, but I'm just to say that was the overall aim of the study that was done. This paper is a kind of a sub-paper that was published, and focus of this paper was to provide information on safety and monitoring in studies using the IV route for alcohol administration. So actually, like you said, they're just sitting there with their alcohol drink, like no one's really having a good time.
Yeah.
But this method of studying alcohol exposure is actually quite widely used because you can control the level of alcohol that reaches the blood. So when you drink things orally, there's lots of different factors that influence how much of that alcohol reaches your blood and how fast it reaches your blood. So things like age, gender is huge.
You got a big meal.
Yeah, the food intake, your body weight. There's just loads of things that influence it. So when you're trying to research alcohol, if you're just getting people to like, sit around at a party and have a good time.
Hard to measure.
Yeah. I mean, you can still measure it, but things aren't going to be the same for everybody.
So are women naturally more lightweight than men?
I think because something that does affect it is like body size and also
Right.
blood volume, say they are, because men have a greater blood volume than women do. So,
More blood.
yeah, as far as I can remember, for like a 70 kilogram man, it's about 5 litres. For a woman, like a really petite little woman, it'd be a lot less. So obviously then, if that little tiny petite woman drinks the same amount of alcohol as this big 6-foot man,
Her like ratio of blood.
she's
to
gonna
alcohol.
get, yeah, exactly. The volume of alcohol in her blood is gonna be a lot higher than the
Yeah.
volume of alcohol in his blood.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
The
So-
whole study is about family history and how that affects you.
Yeah, so the main study, they were looking at how the family history specifically of alcoholism. So they were basically seeing if alcoholism affected your response to alcohol, what happened to you afterwards. So things like hangover or like next day, like emotions and things like that is what I'm guessing.
And then this is like a breakout study.
Yeah. Then in this breakout study, they wanted to evaluate the safety and how to monitor people in studies using just this IV route of alcohol administration, because it's a really widely used route now
Okay.
in alcohol research. And then they also secondarily wanted to improve understanding of the determinants of hangover following alcohol. This was the part that got me interested,
Yeah.
particularly those associated with risk for future alcohol problems. So it is definitely a serious subject. Alcoholism isn't great, but the paper is also trying to kind of elucidate what factors influence our hangovers, which is kind of interesting to me, especially this weekend. So,
They control for race. Because you don't want any
Yeah.
of those Asians
Flush.
coming in with their Asian
Yes.
flush, unable to digest alcohol as well as...
indeed.
Yeah.
Ooh, a very interesting question. I don't think they did.
Because I don't really get Asian flush,
No.
but I know a lot of people that get
Mm.
really bad Asian flush. And I think it's because we don't have...
It's an enzyme.
Yeah, the
There's an enzyme
reason
too.
for Asian flush is because a lot of Asians lack or have really low levels of this enzyme that digests alcohol.
It clears the acetaldehyde from your system.
What she said.
Yeah, that's what I understand from it. So you've enzymes that work to clear. Acetaldehyde is the main product of metabolism of alcohol, and that's what they think causes hangovers. So certain alcohols yield different levels of acetaldehyde. So like I think wine, you produce loads of acetaldehyde from wine.
I'd be very surprised if they didn't control
No,
for
yeah,
race.
so would I. But it's still bad practice that
Yeah.
they didn't report it. So first goal of the study was to provide information on the safety of studies that use the IV route for alcohol administration, and the second was to improve the understanding of determinants of hangover following alcohol consumption, particularly those associated with the risk for further alcohol problems.
Okay.
So what did they do? They had 24 healthy male and female volunteers aged between 21 and 30. So they split them into two groups. So they had a group that had a family member who was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And they had another group that had no close family members that were alcoholics. So they compared these two groups.
It's a hard thing to measure, surely.
That if they have a family member.
Yeah.
So how they did it in this study was they defined it as if you had a first degree relative who was an alcoholic. So that was either a parent, a sibling, or a child.
What is an alcoholic?
It's diagnosed clinically. So they would have had to maybe be in rehab, and they determined it again in this using a structured interview, which is used a lot, I think, in this type of research, is to find out information on your family background.
As far as I'm aware, because I did a project on alcoholism before, there's a very standardised questionnaire that they use that can measure how much you're drinking and how much alcohol is affecting your life. And one of the biggest determinants of whether if you're an addict is if it's impairing normal functioning life.
Okay, but the only the participants in this study would have been taking the questionnaire, but it would have been their family member that would have had alcoholism.
Yeah, so their family member's alcoholism would have been
Asked about.
it's likely to have been
Sounds
diagnosed
like it.
using that questionnaire plus
Okay.
obviously
Yeah.
a professional opinion.
Yeah. Not some go like, oh, I swear my uncle's an
No.
alcoholic. Yeah.
It would have had to have been documented. So yeah, first degree relative, so parent, sibling, or child. And then somebody who was in the family history, so FH positive, so that was somebody who did have a relative that had alcoholism, and then FH negative was somebody who did not have a first or second degree relative that had any alcohol
Okay.
problem. So there's probably that group in the middle who had second degree relatives that they weren't included either. So you
Yeah.
had to either there was no alcoholism in any way close to you, or you had
One
parent, a sibling, or a child
Cool.
who had alcoholism. So the participants arrived at the study facility at 7:30 a.m. in the morning.
God damn.
Yeah, nice and early. and they had to have been fasted since midnight the night before. They gave them a standard meal because, as you pointed out earlier on, what you've eaten affects your alcohol in your blood. So then they started the alcohol infusion about an hour and a half after this meal. So the alcohol infusions usually started around 11:30. So they said they just put a little catheter into your vein in your arm and started pumping in the alcohol.
Fun.
Yeah, great fun. Everyone likes to, drink that way.
Pure alcohol.
Oh yeah, what alcohol?
Yeah, so this is one of the things about the study. They used ethanol, which is alcohol, so that in vodka, in gin, in beer, the alcohol is ethanol.
Okay.
But the thing that makes vodka, so I'll speak specifically about spirits just so for the sake of being clear. So say vodka and gin. So they have different tastes. Do you know? I would taste them differently.
Yeah.
Like, and this is to do with how they're made, distilled, fermented, whatever. In this process, ethanol is formed, but also other chemicals are formed as well. So like acetaldehyde, which ethanol is actually made into in your body, and then that's cleared. So you'll form that even before you drink any. It's formed in the process of the alcohol being distilled. And if you like loads of other things. And usually these things, they're referred to as a group, they're referred to as congeners.
Yeah.
So they're formed naturally, and they're what usually gives different alcohols different flavors. So that's what they're associated with.
So checking out all the congeners.
Yeah, so there's all they have in there is ethanol.
And is that in terms of like percent? That's 100%.
I don't
They
think
mixed
so.
it, no.
Yeah.
So it would have originally been 100% alcohol, but they gave it into the IV mixed with saline.
Oh.
So 6%, so like
So it's a
6
strong
mils.
beer.
Yeah, it'd be
Okay,
strong beer. Yeah. So what they did was they wanted to get to so they said the reason they were going through the IV route is so that they could make everyone have the same volume of alcohol in their blood. So they wanted to reach a blood alcohol volume of 0.06%. To put this into context, okay, 0.06% at that level, you would get symptoms such as an increased feeling of well-being. So that kind of happy feeling you get when you start drinking.
I love that happy feeling.
Yeah. You get decreased inhibitions.
I don't like those.
I do.
You like them at the start.
It depends.
Yeah, at this level you would like them because you're getting a nice
It's
feeling
like
of
a bit
well-being.
more-
The place I like them is whenever I've been drinking in France, and all of a sudden I'm fluent in French.
I love how you started. Oh yeah, whenever I'm drinking in France,
Yeah.
we all do that from time to time.
Yeah.
Okay,
Every
but
other weekend.
the few
Yeah, I know
occasions
what
I've
you
been
mean.
to France.
So yeah, back to the context. So 0.06, you've got an increased feeling of well-being, decreased inhibitions, you're feeling a bit relaxed. You also have impaired judgment, and your reasoning and memory will also be somewhat impaired. So they're probably the more negative end of the scale.
Okay.
But at 0.08% blood alcohol volume, this is the legal limit in the UK for drink driving.
Okay.
So they're being made drunk to lower than the legal limit.
It's like tipsy, really. It sounds like a good, or like merry.
And surely to half the men that wouldn't even reach tipsy.
But you see, that's the thing, because they're not giving the same amount to everyone. They're giving everyone
I see. Oh, right,
an
right.
amount
okay.
until they get to 0.06.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Sorry, yeah, okay.
So that's the thing. That's why they're doing it through the IV route,
Right.
so they can
Yeah.
ensure that everybody is at the same level of drunk.
Yeah, right.
And then also more context. So this was 0.06 blood alcohol volume. At 0.45, you're probably dead.
Like 0.5 is 0.5% alcohol. So if you're
No,
0.5%
no.
alcohol,
This is your blood
Yeah.
alcohol.
There's slightly, it is confusing because you're talking both times in percent. The percentage of a drink and the percentage of alcohol in your blood are completely different.
But as a person, if you're 0.5% alcohol,
You definitely be
you're
dead.
0.5% of, if 0.5% of you is alcohol,
Yeah.
you die.
Yeah, yeah.
You're dead.
You're dead.
It's mad. Yeah.
So you've reached that limit quite a few times.
I've been close. I'm totally dead. Yeah, interesting. And was it 0.06%?
Yeah, is what they got them to hear.
That's really tiny.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a
Yeah.
lot. But I suppose there's ethical concerns when you're doing research in humans. Like, you can't do
Yeah.
anything that's going to inflict serious harm.
Yeah.
And, like, they need to know everything. So I'd say that this was the level they chose in order to,
See some effects.
to get
but not
around those
murder.
ethical barriers.
Do you know what this reminds me of? There was a study that was based here
Mhm.
at the IOPPN where they were looking at the effect of cannabis on something. So one thing they would do is they'd get the participants to breathe in THC, and then
Which is?
the psychoactive part of cannabis,
Okay.
and then they would just get them to go to the shops and see how, like, so I think they were measuring their paranoia and their fear and stuff and how they were behaving in the social situation. And then, obviously, for ethical reasons, they'd have one of them just tailing this guy, tailing the participants behind them.
Obviously, they were paranoid. There's someone following it.
Yeah, this is a poorly designed study. I don't know how I feel about this.
That's funny.
Anyway.
It'd be fun to be the one tailing them, though.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, yeah. So, they started pumping the alcohol into their arms until they reached breath alcohol level of 0.06. And then they maintained this for 140 minutes.
Okay.
So, what's that?
Hours.
Like, 2 and a bit hours.
2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah. So, they used an algorithm, like basically an equation, to factor in their body size, their gender, their age, and things into how to best maintain them at this level. And
so these participants must be sitting there like, they're all plugged in,
Yeah.
all just like quite tipsy.
Yeah, and usually, I don't know, specifically in this, they didn't mention it, but usually to minimise the effect of like participants influencing each other, you would be on your own. Oh no.
I'm imagining everyone in a room but all like wheeling around like
you know
what?
There's nothing more depressing than being drunk on your own.
Yeah.
No. So that might be a confounding factor.
Yeah.
Because they then measured how they felt afterwards if you were already depressed because you've been drinking.
Unless they're bantering with the clinical,
the
clinical team.
Okay, so then they did this, and then after that they removed the catheter and they gave the participants a meal to soak up some of this alcohol they've just given them, and then they put them in a taxi and sent them home.
Nice.
Isn't that nice? Sent them safely home. Yeah. Then they called them 1 to 2 days later to do an interview about their hangover and also their post-session drinking.
They didn't even measure anything to do with the hangover themselves.
Because you can easily get drama queen and be like, oh my god, I'm dying.
Yeah. So the reason I think they did this was because, as I said, they did an interview over the phone to ask about hangover symptoms, but also post-session drinking. So that refers to any alcohol they would have had after their IV session. Yeah, and the reason they were measuring this was the interest in the impact of having a relative with alcoholism. So they were, I suppose, their idea would have been that people who had relatives that had alcoholism might have been induced to drink more so than the group that did not have a relative with alcoholism.
So
surely anyone, if you get anyone a bit merry and send them home again,
they're gonna want to carry on.
They want to carry on, yeah. Like that doesn't mean they.
Especially if they're already social drinkers.
Yeah, and they get home and their family are there, their flatmates are there, so obviously they're gonna be like, carry on.
So they're trying to see if you have alcoholism in your family, does that predispose you to
wanting to drink?
But then surely if the family member that has alcoholism is your child.
See that's going to be different than if it's your sibling.
Yeah,
like if it's your sibling, might kind of be like,
or if it's your parent. Your parent or your sibling having alcoholism is much like, to me anyway, seems much more likely to have this predisposition effect on you, rather than your child having alcoholism. No, unless your predisposition has given it to the child, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think it depends also on whether they're thinking this predisposition would be based on genetic factors, so things like you can't control, or psychological factors, whether having a relative with alcoholism would give you that aversion to drinking more maybe, or because I don't know.
I think there should be a whole separate study done on whether it's your child or someone else, because like say your mum or dad, that means you've grown up probably to the age of like 16 or 18 with an alcoholic parent or whatever, or your sibling. Your child, you could be 40 years old and then have a kid who's an alcoholic.
I agree.
Is that going to affect you that much? Whether it's your genetics or not? I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and then that's again, as I said, this paper is like an aside to the main outcome, so that's why there's all these little holes. So in a way, that's why I kind of chose this one a little bit, because one of our ideas was, when we're getting science out there, is to try and break through that occurrence in the media where things are taken out of context. So this paper could be seen, and when we get to the results, I'll give a more concrete example, but they might be to have seen, like doing this causes you to have a much worse hangover, and that would be the headline.
Like Daily
but
Mail,
whereas sometimes, exactly, Daily Mail.
Daily Mail are the worst.
Yeah.
Don't read Daily Mail.
Whereas this type of paper is just exploratory, and the authors will always say in these types of papers, this was the preliminary analysis. There wasn't, the sample size might not have been big enough, like as in the group participants they looked at, etc., but they'll be like reporting the results anyway because they're interesting and they spend time on them, and they also provide rationale, a reason to do further larger studies.
Okay, cool. Okay. So
Yeah.
I think with like a pinch of salt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So they called them 1 or 2 days later, and they did this thing called the acute hangover scale, which is a questionnaire to measure your hangover symptoms. And this has like 9 different items. So items would be basically questions, and the questions were on things like how you felt in terms of fatigue, clumsiness, dizziness, apathy, which I think is not really caring about life,
Yeah.
sweating.
Does anyone remember that song that used to go like, I'm an emo kid, apathetic as can be, I don't know, to conformity.
No.
Yeah, so like shivering, nausea, heart pounding, confusion, stomach pain, concentration problems, and thirst. And you had to measure these on a scale of 0 to 7. This is my favourite part. 0 being none, and 7 being incapacitating.
Wait, what is it like?
As in, it like affects your life.
Wow.
Which is like, I don't know how other people. I really wanted to try and find
Okay,
this.
if someone is dramatic as fuck, I could be like, I have a headache, I'm dead.
It's incapacitating.
Like, I can't do anything.
I'm so
I frequently
confused.
refer to my hangovers as like, powerful enough to kill. Just getting ready for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair, I have actually had before where you wake up, so like I had this over the Christmas period, I had to work over Christmas for a couple of days, and you're obviously like drinking really, really heavily the night before, you get to bed really late, you don't have much sleep or anything either, you have to get up at like 6 for work the next day, and I was literally like bumbling around the office. I was literally like, "Blah." And it's really weird because you feel like must be fake, like when I thought I'm doing this, I'm like, this is definitely a lie, but actually, let's say it's incapacitating. Like trying to like type away an email there. Just like bagging away.
Definitely. Yeah. That would be the clumsiness.
Yeah. Really
And the
weird.
fatigue.
Did they
And
measure
confusion.
hunger? Sorry.
And confusion.
Did you say if they measured hunger?
They didn't measure hunger, they measured decreased appetite.
Okay.
So yeah, they measured all those things. And then, so you could like analyze each of these. So like you can analyze fatigue, clumsiness, dizziness, all separately. But also then in this questionnaire, you could analyze them as giving you just an overall average hangover score for how bad your hangover was. So then, in terms of results, they found that in the group of 24 participants, 79% of them reported hangover symptoms.
Really? From
Yeah.
0.0... Sorry, if 0.08 is the legal driving limit, and you get a hangover from less than that, either the legal limit needs to be changed or y'all are pussies.
Yeah, that's true actually.
I don't know, yeah. It could also, I don't know, maybe it could be something to do with that it was maintained at that level, maybe.
No, 'cause if you say you went on a night out, you probably stop about 2 or 3 pints in, you're at that 0.06 surely.
Well, it depends.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But like say for like your average whatever, then that's not even sustained, that's like increased over the next 2 and a bit hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Curie.
Yeah, like I don't get
You can get
hangovers
Yeah.
after 1 or 2 drinks, and
Yeah.
that's what would put me at the legal limit.
Yeah.
Also, though, you do need to remember that this IV alcohol infusion
yeah.
isn't the way you would normally have
Yeah.
it. So that in itself, the fact that it was pure alcohol, there was no congeners, there's no mixers, because I've read other studies or I've heard of reports that when you mix an alcohol with a sugary drink versus a no-calorie mixer,
Yeah.
your hangovers are less when you use the sugary drink.
Yeah.
Which is kind of surprising to some people because sometimes you're like, when you have loads of cocktails, you feel really awful. But then that kind of indicates that maybe it's actually the mixture of alcohols rather than all the mixers and things that are having an effect. So I think it's basically just the idea that when you have it with calories, it's easier for your system to
digest.
and also you're diluting your blood further with more calories.
I don't know if you mentioned this. Was there a control group?
No, there was not.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Okay.
No control. So a control in this situation, and they do reference other studies that used controls, and they also do acknowledge that they didn't have a control. They said that their reasoning for this was that in previous studies when they used a control group, so they would have done like say, get in one group and give them the alcohol, and then get another group and give them like salt water in their IV. Okay, you're very much gonna know whether you're getting salt water or alcohol. And they said that the level of participants who got salt water and reported hangover symptoms was 3%, which is really low.
Also dumb.
Yeah,
If you drink a bit of salt water, like, oh, I'm incapacitated.
but it would have been,
Like,
I think.
discard that idiot from the study.
Yeah, exactly. They did it in participants, and they got them in that study, not this one. This is the one they referenced. They gave them the alcohol or the salt water. They got them to sleep for 8 hours, and when they woke up, they measured these symptoms. So some of them were things like tiredness,
Yeah.
or fatigue, or thirst, which those three especially, even if you're not hungover, you sometimes wake up tired or thirsty, do you know what I mean?
And tiredness surely can like affect other things like your confusion and your hunger anyway.
So that might explain that 3% that had salt water and woke and decided
to
score it as a hangover. So that was basically the reason that they gave, but they didn't use a placebo group, was that they didn't expect that much of an effect.
I don't know, I still think you should use one.
I know, it is good practice. The most common symptoms and the ones that scored the highest were tired, hungover, just as a symptom, thirsty, and headache.
They are the worst.
Yeah.
They are the worst.
The thirst and the headache combined sometimes prevent me from getting out of bed for at least 2 hours.
Did they also measure digestive toilet?
No. Yeah, like hangover poos?
Yeah.
No mention of hangover poos, sadly.
Okay.
They
I
do
guess
mention...
they really don't want us to talk about poo this episode.
No. Yeah, this is actually my first episode not talking about poo.
Yeah,
I know it's only the third, but it's kind of strange.
Yeah.
So, they were the most common symptoms. Then, as per their main goal of the study, there was no significant effect of family history of alcoholism on hangover score. So they thought...
I don't even get why they would even think that's a thing.
No,
My
I don't
son's
think...
an alcoholic, now I get really bad hangovers.
I don't think it'll be a thing.
It wasn't so much to do with having somebody who's an alcoholic and a hangover. It was more to see if...
Oh, you're going to drink again.
In one way, yes.
I don't really get this link between this study and alcoholism.
I get like if the study literally just focused on alcohol and then it's like what's the word, like effects. The alcoholism in the family, I don't get where that comes from.
I think what they've looked at with the hangover symptoms is interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't really understand the link to alcoholism.
Yeah, and I did think that, when you're reading a paper, I think Curry might have mentioned in previous episodes how sometimes scientists aren't the best writers. And not to be, I haven't written anything yet, so I'm not the one to criticize, but I do just know from reading papers and having to read a lot of them that, sometimes you read a paper and it flows really nicely and you can see exactly where they're going, and other times it's just a bit unclear. And this was my feeling after reading this paper, was I got a bit lost in it about where they were kind of going with it, and then just to highlight that that's the danger when the media gets hold of things like this, because if me as somebody who reads scientific papers and has to be able to critically analyse them and everything is getting lost in a paper, then the media have no hope. And that's how things get, I think, portrayed badly. But I think they did come out with some interesting things about the hangover symptoms.
Did they find any link?
They found that for the average hangover score, so as I said in the questionnaire, they could get like an overall score. So for that score, and then also for all the individual items, that females scored significantly higher than males.
In the hangover score?
Yes.
Well, duh.
And in all the...
They still have the same alcohol.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry,
there you go.
I just can't seem to get that concept in my head.
I know, it's tricky. It's good though. That's a good thing that they did, was that keeping it constant.
Maybe I shouldn't say this.
But it's also, go on.
Say it and then cut it.
Women are more likely to be on it. Okay, I was going to say women are more likely to whine about feeling shit compared to men. But also, on the flip side, men are also going to be less willing to... they have to like be a man,
Be macho.
So they're going to be less willing to tell them, oh yeah, I've had a couple of drinks and I feel like shit.
Yeah, and that's what kind of this paper as well, when I read it, I was kind of like, I don't know how I feel about that, because they don't give any kind of hint towards mechanisms, like why that might be happening. Again, is it genetics? Is it actually that, I don't know, our cells have more difficulty dealing with alcohol? Is it, like you said, is it psychological? Are women just worse at dealing with headaches?
I feel like if there's going to be some sort of molecular reason behind it, it's more likely to be hormonal.
Yeah. And they don't hint at anything to do with that. And as I said, again, this is a secondary analysis.
It feels like a really huge topic for such a tiny study. They should probably break that down in one of the family thing, one of the gender thing. I don't know, loads of different other studies. Even though this is already a sub-study, but loads of sub-studies.
I guess in defence of their study though, because it is a secondary study, this gives them grounds to then do their own study.
But so they kind of...
I'm not like slagging them off.
You can slag them off.
Yeah. We can do both.
We slag off scientists all the time.
We slag off ourselves too.
Yeah, but I actually really respect scientists for doing what they do,
Thanks, Jo.
All the scientists out there.
Thanks.
I think it's good. If you're interested in this stuff, it's good.
Thanks, Jo.
You're learning and you're helping me learn.
It's not what we're here for.
So what you were talking about earlier on about hangover and alcoholism, at the end when they're discussing their results, they do say that there's previous evidence that people with increased hangover symptoms might be at an elevated risk for alcoholism. So like, again, it's not directly linked, but you know, that might be kind of where they're coming from with, are these people that has relatives that have alcoholism, is this specific to people who have alcoholism, or can their relatives be affected by the worst hangovers too, but yet still not have alcoholism?
I don't know, just to me, something like a psychiatric disorder such as addiction and alcoholism, and trying to link it to hangover just seems so tenuous and out there, and they're just grasping at straws.
And they're actually not even dealing with people who have alcoholism, they're just dealing with their relatives.
With the relatives, I don't know, I just don't really understand why they had that part to it.
Like, I do agree.
Doesn't seem to add anything.
One of their other conclusions was that people, so they also measured something while the people were having the alcohol infusions. They called it subjective response to alcohol. So they measured this using a couple of questionnaires also. So before they gave them the alcohol, or I think that what they did first was in that period, the first 20 minutes when they were giving them, when they were building the amount of alcohol, they asked them these series of questions about how they felt, and there were things like, do you feel intoxicated? Do you feel high? Do you want more alcohol? Like, do you feel like you want more? All these things. So response, this was subjective, so it was self-reported. Basically asking a drunk person, how drunk do you feel?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Immediate answer to any drunk person to that is, I'm not drunk.
Yeah.
I'm not drunk at all.
But would you think you'd change your answer if you're in a scientific study?
Probably.
Yeah. You'd try and be honest, I suppose.
I find it crazy that they measured, that they just called them up 2 days later and was like, oh, sup, so how's your hangover?
Yeah, I know. I
but
kind of saw an issue with that too.
Over like a day or two.
Yeah. It's like recall bias, you know? But I think the reason for that was, remember I mentioned that one of their other outcomes was post-session drinking.
Yeah.
So they wanted to see over that period of time how much they had drank.
Yeah.
So whether it induced them to drink more.
At 0.06% or whatever, where they put them at,
Yeah.
everyone at that alcohol level not behaves the same, but everyone's the same level of drunkenness at that alcohol level. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like someone massive having 12 pints, or someone tiny having like 1 pint.
Yeah.
That level brings all the same.
Yeah. But they're missing mixers, they're missing the congeners in alcohol that are thought to influence. They're also, the way alcohol is then going straight into their blood. So, you know, a big part of the metabolism of alcohol is when it passes through your digestive system, first pass metabolism to the liver, like that's where your alcohol is broken down.
Yeah.
And that goes straight from the stomach. The blood goes straight from where your stomach. Even though it's not as what they call naturalistic, so you're never just going to go out with your friends having injected some ethanol into your blood.
I bet that exists somewhere.
Oh, definitely, yeah. There's a lot of things wrong with it, but it is keeping the exposure really consistent.
See, what I actually do find interesting about it, unless I'm getting it wrong, if at 0.06 everyone has the same level of drunk effectively, surely, in theory, the next day they would all have the same level of hangover. If that amount of alcohol gives you all the same symptoms at that time, then surely the next day would give you all the same kind of amount of symptoms. So actually, one thing that might be interesting to like study further is actually, are your hangover symptoms even related to the amount of alcohol in you, I guess?
That's what they're trying to get at here, I think. They're trying to kind of elucidate the things that make different people's hangovers different.
Yeah.
So like, do you know the way all the women scored higher than all the men? Like they're kind of trying to hint at why that might be, but they're not doing it that great. But as I said, this is the exploratory, this is the secondary analysis. So they're just saying this is what we found, and this can lead on to all these other things. And what you're saying about that they should not, people's hangovers be the same, but the fact is that they're not. So that is an area of research. Like they are trying to find out, like in terms of, I know I read a paper when I was researching for this about how they looked at metabolites while you were hungover. So that's like breakdown products of what you eat in your blood to see if they changed and caused, if consuming alcohol changed how you digested food, to see if that had an effect. And in this paper it didn't, but that was from 1970s. So, you know, the measurement methods may not have been great. But there is loads of different things they are researching. And this is just one paper that was looking to see if there was any impact of having a relative who had alcohol.
I think they've been looking at them. I don't think it's, well, personally anyway, I think the relative bit is like really random, like doesn't really matter.
Agree.
But like what could be cool is like looking at like, if everyone's the same level of drunk at this point, then why aren't they behaving the same at this point, and like what's happening in between? Like,
Joe, you should be a fucking scientist. Do you know what? I think what would have instantly made this study a million times better is if they'd kept the relative consistent. If it had always been a parent,
that's
or if
true.
it had always been a sibling.
Yeah.
But the fact that they
there's
included parents,
too much
siblings,
noise
and children,
Uh-huh.
it just, I don't know, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree. Because at least, like,
I think it must be at a genetic level because then you're the same amount related to those people.
Did they control for things like socioeconomic status?
Not mentioned.
Because that's a huge factor in alcoholism.
do you ever, when you're doing scientific studies, do you ever also, like, bring in elements of economics or philosophy or, like, I don't know, or do you try and purely focus on the science side of things?
It depends what you're doing. Psychologists have a big philosophy intertwining with their work.
Yeah. 'Cause it all feels like it's kind of like, surely this study could actually lead on to like a really interesting study on sociology. Or I don't know, like
Yeah, but that's like interdisciplinary research, which does happen.
There's a big push for interdisciplinary research.
Yeah.
But when it comes to papers like this, the journals that you publish in are specific to a field, so you don't really get a lot of philosophy plus cellular biology, for example. But a lot of these health studies will nod towards the fact that if we can have these health benefits, blah blah blah, then maybe we can lower the economic burden of healthcare, or for example.
Right.
But it would be really interesting if there was this big,
Huge tied
huge
in,
scale,
like,
real life study. But
Yeah.
I think we need to understand more about why things are happening in the first place.
Yeah, the mechanisms. But yeah, so that was basically what they found. I thought the most interesting finding was the fact that, you know, the women came out with more symptoms
That
than
is
men did.
interesting. It would be nice to find out what, at a molecular level, what's going on there.
Yeah, it would be, really would be.
Yeah.
Whether it is just women can't deal.
I'm saying it's hormonal. I'm calling it now.
Yeah,
I'm saying it's too subjective. I think they should have like measured something, ringing them up 2 days later.
they did try, they did mention that they collected information on menstrual cycle. So the idea, I'm guessing from that, was that they gave women the alcohol at a certain point in their menstrual cycle. Also, just one other thing that I wanted to read out, it was maybe my favourite line in the paper. They said that, back to what we were talking about, when you wake up and you're hungover and you either feel like you can't ever touch alcohol again, or you're like, okay, I need more to stop making me feel like this. Hair of the dog, yes. So they did state in the classic scientific language, despite the practice of using alcohol to ameliorate, which means to make better, the hangover, and then in brackets, hair of the dog. Not a phrase you normally see in a scientific paper. I enjoyed that. The clinical characterization, treatment, and prevention aspects are not well studied.
No shit.
So basically what they're saying here is that there is no research on hangover cures. Gap in the research.
Oh, there you go.
Wait, hang on. You're saying no? Surely.
There's not.
Sure, no. I don't.
No, because Curie, that is not. Who's going to fund that? It's alcohol's not good for your health. Why would they research ways to cure?
No. I don't believe that there's no studies on. Demelza, she's on it.
Yeah.
I do not believe that there are no studies on hangover.
Okay, no, it doesn't say no studies. It says not well studied, and then it goes on to say,
Okay, fine.
and previous studies have not been able to substantially identify any conventional or complementary intervention, which is just a fancy way of saying a cure, that could be effective for preventing or treating alcohol hangover.
Okay, fine.
And then they say, which is the most frustrating part, one of the most effective ways that have been supported to avoid the symptoms of alcohol-induced hangover. Like, I love how they say this as though it's a groundbreaking statement. So just, sorry, to go back. So, one of the most effective ways that have been supported to avoid the symptoms of alcohol-induced hangover has been associated with practicing abstinence.
Fuck off. This is like, there's people that are like, abstinence is the safest sex is abstinence.
I love how that's one of the most effective ways to it. It's not like 100% effective.
I can't believe that was how they felt the need to have to put that in writing. That was by Hitler et al. In 2005. Well done.
Fuck you,
Well done, Hitler. Bullshit. That's not a fun way to live your life.
One thing I've taken away from this whole podcast, it's a lot easier to like critique humans than mice. Do you mean? Because we're able to be like, what about their uncle, their son, their brother,
Thing
their
is,
this,
but
that.
that's because
we just
you
throw them
can't-
together. I don't know, like what mouse
But
was related to the other
The
mouse?
thing is, you can't control humans. This is.
And also there's the ethical considerations. There's things you can do to animals, which I know that, again, maybe the animal activists shouldn't have come back for this part, but you can, and I mean it is for the benefit of people's health. And I'm not saying I 100% don't agree with testing shampoo on poor little mice, but you know, in terms of saving people's lives and drugs and things like this, you do need to study them with animals, and there are things you can do with animals that you cannot ask humans to do.
The thing is, it's one of the old, I think, in my opinion anyway, this is the ultimate challenge of science. And it's one of those questions that sometimes when you sit back and think about it, I'm a bit like, why the fuck am I doing any of the work that I'm doing? Humans are so variable and so hard to control that it's so difficult to find a definitive answer for anything. And that's why these studies are so small and like so niche, and why maybe answering your other question of do we ever have these big interdisciplinary things, why it's so difficult to do that, because we need these controlled settings to try and find something. And then you take that thing that you found and put that into a global setting, and it won't work.
Discounted. Yeah, that's fair.
It's hard. Human research is really, really hard.
Yeah,
because you need to try to keep everything
be fully. So, like, say for example, we sewed 2 humans together, you and I. My brain might have just been really upset, and might have stopped performing neuroscience or whatever because it was upset or generating neurons because of that trauma. Like, but we don't think about that in terms of mice. We're like, can it ever objective? They can it ever be like fully objective because you're actually
there's little ways, but they're never perfect.
It's hard.
Yeah,
but it is like that. The things, objective measurements would be referred to as like the gold standard. They're usually difficult. They're usually expensive.
Yeah,
and that's why we have to do subjective measures. And especially in nutrition, doing objective measures of people's diet, for instance, which is like going to be the main outcome usually, or like a really important thing to be measuring when you're doing nutrition research, is virtually impossible. Like, you'd have to either be giving people all of their food, which then isn't applicable to real life because people aren't given all their food, they decide what they eat, or else you have to put them in a facility, provide all the food in fridges and things like this, but get them to live there, and they only can eat out of this fridge, and then you monitor what's taken in and out of it, which is ridiculously expensive and time consuming. Really hard to get people to try and volunteer for that. It is really difficult.
Interesting, though.
Ding ding ding, Silent Demelza's input. Yeah, pretty much no research on hangover cures on PubMed unless you're interested in ginseng. Fucking ginseng.
What's ginseng?
It's a root.
I just thought it was like something they put in tea.
Lots of health benefits. In air
Air
quotes.
quotes.
I'm as an Asian, I have to believe in ginseng.
You're legally obligated, similar to St. Patrick's
It's
Day.
in my DNA.
Being drunk. Yeah. Nice. That's the end of that.
That's really interesting, both of those.
Do you have any final thoughts?
So one of my final thoughts was the whole objective vibes. The other one is no. Both really interesting, both in their own ways. Turns out science is great. And
Another convert.
Mission accomplished.
yeah, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
Did you have fun?
I mean, it's fun actually. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Good.
Kind of fun, isn't it? Well,
It is quite fun.
I find it
yeah.
kind of fun.
Yeah. I think it's fun when you start hearing about it from people that are willing to.
Shit.
That are willing to slag off
Jesus,
scientists.
we've really been.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's really late, guys.
Oh, yeah,
It's
we
quarter
did
to
it.
11 and we're still in the office.
2 missed FaceTime calls
Yeah.
from my mom.
Cool, well, thank you so much for listening, everyone. Thank you to Joe for being an amazing guest. So, our socials, you can catch us on Instagram and Twitter at Lay It Out Podcast.
If you'd like to get in touch and tell us about your childhood of licking batteries, you can email us on layitoutpodcast@gmail.com.
And also, you know, we have noticed that we have a lot of listeners, or people that have listened, hopefully you're back, that we don't know. So if you have any feedback or anything you want to say, or a topic that maybe you want us to talk about, then please
like
email us.
suggestions.
We'd really like suggestions. And obviously, of course, you can find out everything and more on our blog written by the lovely Silent Demelza at layitoutpodcast.wordpress.com. Joe, do you have anything you want to promote?
If you want to like specially request me back again, email and call in.
Vote for Joe.
Vote for Joe.
Joe for president.
And I will have a go.
Yeah, cool. So if you've downloaded us on iTunes, please rate us 5 stars. That'd be really cool. And CoFresh sponsor us,
CoFresh.
please.
We're really lacking in nice low calorie. Demelza raised her eyebrows when I said low calorie. The grills are actually not that bad for you.
But the chakra sticks are terrible.
But yeah.
This is how to get a sponsor.
Oh shit, yeah. We'll cut that out.
Yeah, we're sorry we forgot you last episode, CoFresh. We had a lot of emotional issues dealing with our audio fuck up.
It was very sad.
Do you know what? If you all are listening, CoFresh have a Twitter. Please go tweet them, telling them to sponsor Lay It Out.
We're hungry.
We love you. Okay, cool. Anyway,
Goodbye.
bye.
See you next time.
Bye.
Slán. What? It means goodbye in Irish.
Oh, bye.
Slán.
So long.
my first one. Start us off.
Sorry. I thought that'd be really quiet.
Alice, did you burp?
Mhm.
That stinks.
Well, no, I think. Okay.
So I tried-
today, wait until Curie. Okay.
I tried real life Irish butter for the first time today.
Français.
Français
Et très mal.
Merde.
Mhm.
Merde.
Merde.
Merde.